With the success of X-Men First Class, it came upon Fox to try to continue this new trilogy of prequels, ultimately to try and continue the past characters' adventures from where they left off in First Class. Ultimately, Laura Schooner Donner decided it was a good idea to adapt the Days of Future Past storyline. One of the most infamous storylines, just because of the idea of a person coming back from the future to try and change things, is really fucking cool. And let's be honest, it's happened lots of times in the comics because it's a really cool fucking idea. In this movie we do see Bishop, but we don't see him going back, which was considered alongside possibly Cable, mainly because, you know, if it's going to be Days of Future Past, it's going to be someone being sent in a weird mental thing. Of course, being that both Cyclops and Jean Grey are dead, you can't have the character who's their kid in this alternate future. So, back Kitty Pryde, because she wouldn't be in the 70s, where they decided to try and set this, mainly again to try and pop it off to a next movie where hopefully they would continue the past actors, the past, future, next actors, you know what I mean. They decided it was going to be Wolverine, because he would definitely be alive at around that point. I wanted to change the timeline a little bit to try and give some new ideas in terms of where they could go and what they could do with stuff, you know, just in case they wanted to change some ideas, which of course they did. The characters that we kind of grew to know to still be, you know, having a good fate by the ending. And that's kind of where the idea of this movie came from. Bryan Singer comes back to direct these films alongside bringing back a bunch of the cast of the first three and some of its crew. A bunch of the people who know about the first few films are the people who are being brought on to help kind of transition to the next generation, who again are in the past. It's weird, but hey, it's pretty cool to try and genuinely connect this into the continuity. The future from the Wolverine continues forward, where we find out what they're exactly worried about is that now they fully developed the strongest version of the Sentinels, these giant robots that were designed by Peter Dinklage's version of Bolivar Trask, who is not a little person, which I believe is the correct term. Don't call me out on that. Yeah, he's not like that in the comics, but yeah, that's fine, because it does act like that in the comics. He's very strange. Because of his obsession with mutants, he ultimately made this weapon to try and fight against them, for a very similar reason why Magneto would want to kill the humans. You know, it's because they would probably do that kind of thing. This resulted in, of course, Jennifer Lawrence Mystique to kill him a long time ago, which radicalized his ideas, and they've been developing the Sentinels in secret. A thing which the X-Men has known for a while. Which is kind of shown in the game, but again, I don't really count that as canon, but maybe sort of canon, because they are shown in the training room portion of X3, so they definitely knew about the Sentinels. It's that the good chunk of the world didn't know about the Sentinels. This makes sense because the main X-Men group, now all looking cool, come to this rebellion group of the younger generation, being Iceman, Kitty Pryde, and some new guys. And the Sentinels have been developing this technology for these many years, which thanks to Mystique and apparently a rogue which has been kidnapped and experimented on so they could try and gain her power to kind of help absorb the power of the other mutants. Which again, I watched the Rogue cut for this, which actively has her scenes and some extra minutes into the film, which absolutely adds a lot to this, by the way, and makes the Sentinels make more sense, because Mystique can only really replicate the looks. She kind of replicated a version of Wolverine's claws in the first movie, but they didn't work the same way. You know, they're not the same thing. So having Rogue in there makes it make sense. She also needs to finish her character arc, which they didn't in the fucking last movie, so thanks, guys. But thanks to that, we get the, you know, recent newest Sentinels, which have been killing or capturing mutants all over the place, including certain characters that we knew from the past. And I believe probably a lot of the characters that we knew, I'm assuming that if they're not captured and in horrible mutant prison camps, they'll probably be in jail being experimented on, very similar to Rogue, which is probably a lot of the, like, tattoo guys from the third film. Or they're fucking killed, like straight up Angel, and definitely if they're not shown in this, and they're like the major characters, they're absolutely dead. Nightcrawler's fucking dead. He's not mentioned to be dead, like Angel is in the mentioned weird online timeline they have. But pretty sure he's fucking dead, because I don't think Nightcrawler would just go down like a bitch, so. As is a lot of the characters whose fates kind of went unconfirmed in terms of if they were even alive by the point of the original trilogy, like Havoc. I'm pretty sure he was alive at around the point of the original, unless of course the next movie still kind of happens in the original timeline, which that's another topic, but pretty sure he was alive by the point of the first 3 films and probably also went out fighting. I don't know. So none of the Sentinels have completely fucked over the future to the point of killing anyone who would even side with them, including, I believe, Angel's father, who, he was a good guy in the 3rd one. He was just very much mistaken, like, when you really look at it. Like, he wasn't, like, forcing the mutants, like, to get a cure. He was just doing what he thought was the right thing. I mean, if you fucking came in and your son was chopping off his wings that he now has, you'd be like, oh, this is a thing. So I feel like he was heavily misguided, and I feel like there are lots of people that definitely support the X-Men, especially their allies with... Well, there's a reason he was in the cabinet in the first place, so there's definitely allies of mutants. It's just a lot of them are fucking dead, which has left the world just in complete ruins, because now the worst of people are in charge. Not just America, but the whole world has Sentinels that are fucking blasting people here and there, to the point where this group has to continuously send one of them back in time, mainly Bishop, so they don't get immediately murdered, and hopefully save as many people as they can. Blink, by the way, who is also in the Gifted show, and just her existing, and also Warpath's brother being in the Gifted show is the reason I think the Gifted show probably happens in this timeline. I just wanted to mention that show. That weird family is totally dead, by the way. Absolutely. Anyway, meet with these kids, tell them about the Sentinels and what I just said, and also that there needs to be a way to stop them completely. Hopefully, to possibly send someone back all the way far in the past. Xavier, even though he has such strong mental powers, cannot be the one to be sent that far back in time because he might just lose his fucking mind and maybe even make it worse. Wolverine is the one chosen because he previously got his whole mind fuckered up, so sure, fine. He's sent back in the past where he, of course, meets up with a younger version of Xavier and Beast who aren't quite living the best of the lives. Lots of people have been brought out of his school due to being drafted into Vietnam, going around at this point, including, of course, Havoc. He just kind of started losing it. Beast has made this thing, which isn't specifically like the mutant cure, it's more of a thing that kind of suppresses their abilities, which is actually really cool that it's in this movie. Yeah, it's weird that this was a thing and that he was kind of surprised at the mutant cure being a thing when he kind of made one. It doesn't completely, like, ruin that whole scene because even though I kind of said that it lessens that scene, I still kind of think that scene isn't as cool when you get to him having this kind of thing. But I don't feel like it ruins it, because he hates the idea that he's had to, like, suppress it the whole time and constantly take this thing to fit in with humans. And it would make sense that there being a whole full-stop cure would very much interest him. And his character, both in the previous one and in this, before changing his mind due to the events in this, would show that in the original timeline why he would continue to do that and also be surprised. I mean, again, we saw him in the background looking human. So this gives us an explanation for a plot hole that we didn't need, but it's really cool. It also adds another answer to a plot hole that we kind of didn't really need, because Xavier can also walk in this, and it makes sense that slowly he would on his own learn years later, but to just kind of let be what he wants. Because this serum gives him back his ability to walk, but also takes away his mental power. So I like to think that over time, he eventually learned to stop needing it, and by the point of X-Men Origins Wolverine, that was his full stop, I'm gonna get back into this. And his mental powers were beginning to come back to him as they kind of led, Cyclops out of that thing, as they met him in X-Men Origins Wolverine. But they weren't, like, fully there, because otherwise he could have stopped that whole fucking thing from going on. You could just, So I'd like to imagine that he finally decided that he was going to use Cerebro to find some kids that he saw were in trouble and decided that this was the moment. You know, this was the moment I'm going to do this. I guess he naturally balded, by the way, which is a thing we'll talk about in the next one, but I feel like that makes sense. He is still technically Patrick Stewart. So this kind of adds not only an answer to that plot hole, but also something that kind of adds to the Xavier character. The idea that they were this state at around the point of the 70s really much adds to who these characters are. For Wolverine to convince Xavier he does, and ultimately they decided to find Magneto, being that he's also very much needed to try and change the mind of Mystique, to make sure that, of course, she doesn't kill Trask and start the whole Sentinel thing. Of course, Magneto is in prison in specifically the Pentagon all the way down there because he apparently killed JFK for reasons that are not clear. To try and break him out, they meet up with Quicksilver. He's not specifically fully important in this film, but he is important for this cool little part by an actor that you may know from American Horror Story. He's really fucking funny in this, especially because he just uses his power whenever he wants and will be like, yeah, no one will believe you, say whatever you want. Maybe I'm fast, maybe you're crazy. Whatever. Wolverine apparently knows him in the future. He also apparently is the original timeline's version on why mutants can't go in sports. Fun fact. He's definitely killed by the Sentinels, is what I'm saying there. But being that we're in the past before that whole thing happens, whatever he would have been in the future, he's able to help Magneto, who, yes, is maybe his dad in this timeline? I don't know. They kind of Ocean 11s, I guess not really, they're not really like bank heisting. I don't know. The point is that they sneak in there and it's pretty neat. And they nearly get him out, but they are surrounded by people, which of course leads to the super awesome fast Quicksilver scene, which is probably the best scene of this whole fucking film. It's really cool. And the best part about it is it doesn't like completely ruin the like stakes of this scene. You know? It's more showing off that he can go really fast rather than stop time completely going real fast, you know? And the bullets are still very much moving, like he needs to take itself seriously, but he has a lot of confidence to him that he can just like fuck around like while doing it, and that's really funny. I want to state that there are still stakes in this scene for when we get to the next movie, but point is, this seems really fucking cool. They send him off elsewhere because if he was still in the film, he'd probably solve several of its problems, but perfectly fine because he's not really needed in the rest of this because it's more important that they try and change Mystique's mind rather than use, you know, Quicksilver to beat up the bad guys. When, as far as they know, there is no bad guys, it's just we need to stop Mystique at this moment. Probably could have thought for a second that maybe if we had Quicksilver we could just stop her real fast. But he is like a young kid, but they also helped him in the Pentagon. So, yeah. It depends on your perspective on whether or not they should have kept bringing him. So whatever. During the plane ride to where they know Bolivar Trask will be, we get some cool scenes with Mystique sneaking in and actually finding out the fates of several characters from First Class. Basically all the villains were just like experimented on by Bolivar Trask. This is again showing why she wanted to go and kill him. This is the same in both timelines, by the way, so fuck Banshee, I guess. Oops. And we also get a bit of a tuffle on the plane ride there, where we find out he actually didn't kill JFK. He tried to save JFK because JFK and his brother are fucking mutants, which is the weirdest thing. Of course, in the scene that was actually shown at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, because why not? He meets up with some Vietnamese dudes, and he finds with his mutant tracker that Mystique has pretended to be one of them, and she's caught. She nearly kills Bolivar, and of course would be later tasered, thus starting the original timeline. But thankfully, the X-Men are able to kind of burst in because of the fact that Stryker is actively with Bolivar Trask at the time. Wolverine goes a little bit wonky, which fucks up the whole process. Thus, having Mystique get shot is to escape. She nearly gets caught by Magneto, who's like, well, I'm still Magneto, I have to do bad things, so to save everyone I have to kill you. But he's stopped by Beast, who just goes, fuck it, I'm blue now, and is able to allow her to escape, but again, unfortunately, her DNA is all over the place, so the Trask company gets it anyway. It allows him to gain the trust of Richard Nixon, who allows him to start making the prototype version of the robots, which would, oops, we've accidentally made it go faster. Fuck. Magneto then goes off on his own to convince Mystique to work with him to try and stop Trask and also just say fuck you to the whole entire world, and thus now Xavier, Beast, and the back together Wolverine have to go and stop them. They nearly get fucked up completely due to the fact that Wolverine spazzed out. He kind of slashed Kitty Pryde. Thus, in the road cut, we get this. We get these cool 2 moments that are only in the road cut, which actively help the arcs of the characters, not only in this, but also what they were doing in the previous ones, and also where they'll be in the future. First off, of course, Magneto and Iceman, although are nearly killed by the Sentinels, do get Rogue and are able to come back to the main base, thus allowing her to continue Kitty Pryde's place, which of course continues and finishes her arc as it was previous. It's not a full great conclusion, but it's a lot better than her not being in the movie. We also see a cool little romantic scene with Mystique and Beast, which actively kind of continues their character arcs. Firstly, we get a really good scene showing Beast's whole mental state during this film, and also why exactly he changed his mind during this point of the movie, going on forward in this new timeline. Why he doesn't just fuck off. This movie really needed this scene originally, and it sucks that they cut this out, because seeing an emotional part with Beast really makes him a different character when you see him later on in the movie in the new timeline, when he's, truly is mutant and proud, rather than finding that out years later and kind of it being too late. These 2 things also help the things that happened in the movie regardless make more sense, because they don't find her immediately alongside Magneto, because Mystique fucking smashes the rebuilt, but again, still different enough from the first movie's Cerebro that I can still bullshit the idea that maybe him and Magneto built the other one in the real timeline. Cerebro. She smashes it alongside a part of a Sentinel when they escaped is on the Blackbird in the future, which is the reason the Sentinels track our future boys. Thus, in the big final thing, the Sentinels are unveiled as our main characters are able to get there at the last second after kind of finding out that it was going to maybe be a thing due to seeing it on the news, and thus, of course, as does Magneto, who, during the night when they're being transported to the White House, he kind of put metal stuff in them and now is able to control them. With this, he starts fucking around, and not only that, for some reason decides to move an entire stadium around the White House. That makes sense to trap the people, but also, I'm pretty sure the writer was like, I really want a finale in a stadium, but also near the White House. But I can't decide which, so just fuck it. Magneto powers. He, of course, throws away Wolverine, and we are basically fucked completely, especially because the Sentinels start coming in and just wrecking dudes in the future. And because they can't send people back now, because they're doing that currently, and they're kind of fucked now, so fucking Colossus gets pulled apart, which I don't know how that works, but okay. Spot specifically in this, who we'll actually see later in the New Mutants, Cooley, but he's not Pyro. Pyro's dead in this timeline. We kind of saw his little thing before in the movie with the pictures of the killed. He gets killed, Bishop gets killed, and nearly does Magneto before he's kind of pulled through the wall by Kitty Pryde. Which I'd imagine they can't send them back to the point of before that Wolverine spazzed out, because that would kind of fuck with things more. So they're kind of just hoping that Wolverine can fix things. Thankfully, though, he doesn't need to. Mystique's able to just beat up Magneto, and Xavier is able to kind of be like, hey, don't do it. So thus she kind of has mutants in a better eye for the public, at least for now. Thus changing the future to a much better one. Even though Wolverine was seemingly thrown into the fucking ocean into near death, he wakes up in a cool new future. We see the better future versions of our characters. Iceman isn't with Kitty Pryde for whatever reason. He's now with the new, better future Rogue. Good. But, you know, everyone's cool, much better school. Beast is there in a funny little outfit again. And we, of course, see Jean Grey and Cyclops now perfectly fine and not exploded. Movie ending with Wolverine and Professor X realizing there's quite a little bit to catch up on, mainly with how he got out of the sea after being just thrown into it by Magneto, which is seemingly by Stryker, who is in reality Mystique pretending to be Stryker. That specifically is important for later. Firstly, I want to say that I think it also makes sense in terms of where Professor X and Magneto are, in terms of where they are in the past of the X3 movie, because I think that they could have met that due to Professor X possibly gaining some trust of the government due to just coming out as a mutant, he probably gained their trust and gained the custody of Magneto. I feel like it doesn't make full sense, but I feel like however he did it, he gained custody of Magneto, as that would be the only way he was able to be gotten out, and would have been with him for when they went to Jean Grey, as he probably wanted to start the school with his best friend, as that would have been the best way to possibly lead mutants into the future. And also, again, how they built Cerebro, because that still needs to be a thing, because he says so, just saying. Been Cerebro 3, even though there was a Cerebro 2, so it would have been Cerebro 1 Part 3. There we go. That's how numbers work. Either way, this movie has a really cool plot. The way you mix with the awesome dystopian future with the crazy Sentinels doing their crazy shit, and genuinely showing enough of the characters to show their plight, and because they are the characters that we grew to know and love from the previous films, is really mixed well with the present ones in terms of learning who they were in the past, and also continuing arcs presented in First Class. Mainly it's Beast and Xavier, and also the continuing of... Mainly it's Beast, Xavier, Mystique, and Magneto, but we do get a bit Havoc when Mystique kind of saves him and a group of mutants when she pretends to be another person when they're about to be transported to Trask's area by Stryker, which due to not having as much time with that character, I feel like this, alongside where the characters' arcs are at the end of this was definitely meant to be a transition film. A film of, we're going to end where we left off before, fix that stuff, and make a much better future to hopefully build off these characters we've recently introduced. For the most part, it really does its job. I'm fine with the arcs not specifically being concluded as long as what is set up in the beginning of the film happens by the end of it. Characters change their mind, characters change what they want to be, and it all makes sense. I feel like they are the same characters that we not only have grown to love throughout the last two movies, mainly, again, the younger versions of them. Different characters from the start to the end of the film. Xavier grows into the Xavier that we know and love. Once again, the actors from First Class are still the younger versions of their actors from the future, and seeing the two groups is really great. We unfortunately don't get the meeting of the Magnetos, but we do get to see McKellen and McAvoy actively talk when he kind of like goes through Wolverine into future Wolverine, which I guess that works. And to see the two X's talk is really cool. Again, it's not necessarily needed in terms of how he became who he was, but it is cool because it does help him become a now better version of him that'll hopefully make a better future with Magneto. Again, Beast realizes who he is, and it's really needed the Rogue cut for this to be shown, because it's a really great arc that he learns to not hide himself throughout all these years, again, until it's too late. Mystique will not join Magneto and go through the bad path that she eventually goes through, and will hopefully lead to a much better future. Magneto is still uncertain, but again, him and Havoc and other characters kind of shown throughout this are definitely built off to now, with this seemingly better future, will hopefully lead to more cooler adventures and where it might be. Especially in terms of, the post-credit scene of, oh, is that Apocalypse? What's going to happen there? So yes, while the movie kind of goes, here are these characters, set them up, what adventures will they have now, it does still have a cool arc with them, which leads to us wanting to see them go into the future. It also ends off the versions of the characters that we've known and loved throughout the things. We definitely aren't going to see a lot of these actors ever again as these characters. Even though I would love to, we do see them all have a much greater future and a much better lives for now. And that's a really satisfying ending, especially when it kind of got fucked up previous. And again, learning who they are not only adds to who they were in the previous films, but also adds to our enjoyment of now they have a much better future. We're like, hell yeah, you know? I love movies that add to their, like, to the previous movies of their franchise, and this really does that. This adds to who they were before we eventually met them, and I love that kind of thing. This is why I do marathons, to really see what a movie does to the rest of its franchise and what it adds to it by existing. And this adds a lot to the arcs of the characters from the past to what we know of them in the future. I said the word past and future a little bit too much now. But point being, it's really fantastic. Weirdly, there's no kind of arc for Wolverine. He gets his happy ending, but I kind of just saw him as a person who was helping the movie happen, you know? There wasn't a lot of character development into him. But again, that's fine, because now there's a much better ending, so they can continue forward with this new group. Again, new group which they set up in this. Quicksilver, Havoc, and the possibility of there being, again, the newer timeline versions of the characters that we knew, which being they established that this new timeline may be very different, we're going to get very different adventures. And that's really cool. This was an incredibly satisfying conclusion to the arcs that we have established throughout the movies, even though I do think it got lost in terms of what idea it wanted to do and where it wanted to go with the characters. It kind of, this movie really found it all by the end and was able to take what the last ones did and really bring it together to this great conclusion and a send-off to the past generation. And again, a great setup for the next one, established in First Class, to hopefully bring in cooler, greater movies that we'll talk about. But point is that there is a setup and a great setup for the future. But the great part about this is that there is hope, even though things may seem dire and fucked up. There is always a second chance for everyone, and that not everyone needs to go down a dark, god-awful path. There's a specific line in the movie that's all about second chances. And I feel like it's really important to always give people second chances and give the world itself a second chance sometimes, even if it may seem totally fucked up. And hey, if this can mean a second chance for the X-Men franchise, then great. Of course, even if not, which, you know, probably not, this is a great conclusion to the general storyline of the X-Men. If you want to stop right here and stop watching the X-Men, honestly, it's a great conclusion, and it's better to kind of stop here, even despite Logan's fantasticness. If this was the last X-Men movie you saw after watching all the previous ones, perfectly fine. Absolutely fine. The cool part about this movie is the fact that it's kind of a reboot. Now, it takes what we did know before and will continue the First Class, but it's more continuing that. This is very much a send-off of the characters and the X-Men that we knew. But this is the kind of right way to reboot stuff. The Star Trek or Mortal Kombat 9 way of rebooting a thing. You make a new generation version of characters that we knew. Now you're going to raise them up, have them grow up, do their own stuff, but make sure that the stuff that we've been following for at this point, well, at least in terms of Mortal Kombat and Star Trek decades, but like near or only kind of one decade at this point, for X-Men, these stories matter. These characters matter. I have grown up with them, and I'd like them to keep mattering, you know? I hate reboots and remakes for this exact reason. It feels like you're going, nah, that shit didn't matter. Fuck it, who cares? Specifically point that kind of stuff out. Again, it's the yellow spandex kind of thing of, ha, that was goofy, and we're doing a better version of that. And it would have been really shitty for them to do that, but way the fuck worse. You know, that's not just a weird dumb line, but if they just straight like rebooted X-Men, that would have been shitty. That would have been full shitty. But doing this is the right kind of way of doing it. You make a new future and a good send-off to these characters and the ability to continue forward. And again, not only adding context to characters that we kind of knew a little bit about, but now know a lot more about, making the previous movies even better, but also making new movies seemingly have more of a point to them and actually have us looking forward to stuff. Even if again, you could probably stop and be perfectly fine. Of course, there being possibility in a new, better line of movies isn't just the thing that this movie comes to be. Now, it's a great movie all on its own. It's got a very fantastic, watchable plot with a lot of likable, great characters that, again, we've grown to know and love. All of them are fantastically acted. Again, you bring back the original director who knows this cast and really knows how to bring out the best emotions out of these people. He's really learned how to be a much better director than he used to, which was just pretty good, but definitely could use some work, and he has absolutely grown from that. I see the exact characters that we've seen grow throughout these last few movies all together here. And again, even though I feel like Wolverine being in here is a little bit inconsequential, Hugh Jackman still brings it his absolute best. You have this fucking all-star cast. Not necessarily they're all big-named actors, but you have the, like, big meetup episode kind of thing. Oh, here are the best people, they're brought back. And that's what this feels like, and it's really cool. This is so great to see all these people here and genuinely bringing it their all. Later on, a few of these actors clearly won't give a shit, but they, even if they're in a small role, like again, Havoc, that was kind of here for like a scene, or Quicksilver, who is kind of important for the first half, but not really the second half, all of them genuinely bring it their all and really feel like who they should probably be. If not in terms of this being the same universe as these characters have been in previous, but definitely some great interpretations of Havoc, of Toad, who's in there for a scene. There's always been a good Professor X and Magneto, but this is a great Mystique, probably the best Mystique of the whole franchise in terms of how she's portrayed by Jennifer Lawrence especially. And probably the coolest scenes ever been with Colossus and Iceman, which we've been wanting to fucking see, and it's their first appearance. And yeah, it sucks that they've not been this way for a long time. It would have been cool to see this Iceman this whole time, and they won't really be here in the future. But you know what, again? Fantastic send-off, and all these people were here bringing it their all to really make it feel like that. And it's especially that for its effects. The effects have always been pretty good in this, but they are fantastic in here. Seeing the Sentinels just be these towering fucking beasts of robots is awesome. Again, I have an idea of the Sentinels, the classic Sentinels in my mind, but this being that, wow, they are actually fucking terrifying. It doesn't have too crazy of set pieces. The big Magneto moving shit, but whenever he does it, which is multiple times throughout the movie, it always looks really fucking cool. Especially, again, that big giant fucking stadium part, holy shit, that was awesome. And again, in the future stuff, I love I love the cool, dark future aesthetic of that. I could have used a whole movie of that, straight up. Would have loved to see that. And again, especially Iceman, Colossus look really cool in this. And again, the characters who aren't in too much of this, again, Sunspot, Blink, Warpath, also look really fucking cool. Like, this is a comic-accurate Warpath and Bishop. Like, I never expected that kind of fucking thing. I would love to see more of them. Hopefully in the MCU we'll get these kinds of characters. But, damn, man, this is pretty fucking close to what I would love to see. Maybe for a full movie, though, please. The movie doesn't have as clean of shots as First Class does, but does have some great cinematography. Now, I would honestly kind of mix it with the kind of fast action of the originals and the kind of more slower, more dynamic shots of First Class, kind of bringing it together, again, a merging of the eras and timelines to kind of really make things feel all connected. The movie looks really fucking good. It shows its action probably the best out of the whole series. Again, I love the clean shots of First Class. The action shots look fantastic in this. This is a amazingly... This is a really great looking movie that honestly is so entertaining throughout the whole part of it. And even if not much action is happening, it's still very entertaining. It keeps your attention with the way that it shoots its characters, and when it gets to its emotional scenes, it really shows off what they're feeling in that moment. Again, James McAvoy is fantastic. His realization moment, his moment with Patrick Stewart, Professor X, all great scenes. And again, best whole fucking scene, bar none, is the awesomely edited, crazy, like, super fast scene of Quicksilver. Fucking masterpiece of cinema, straight up. And that, alongside Magneto moving the whole stadium, this both past and future Sentinels, everything in the future, goes to show you that, yeah, practical effects are cool, but CGI, when done right, can look like fucking this and look spectacular. This is the reason I absolutely want people to use CGI, especially for superhero stuff. Because it can look awesome. I don't care if it's fake. Fuck you, it looks cool. I don't give a shit. And speaking of a mix, the costumes in this are great. I liked the leather stuff of the others, and I liked the more comic, accurate stuff of First Class. So to kind of merge them together to a kind of comic accurate, but at least more comic-like appearance of these characters is fucking great. I love these costumes in this. They feel like their own, but also something that when I look at, I go, that's Wolverine, that's Kitty Pryde, that's Iceman, you know? They look exactly what I would want them to look like in a movie version of this kind of thing. Again, this movie was definitely made at around the point of the MCU, so they were trying to change some stuff up, and this was the right way to do it. Make these characters look the way they are, have it be more about the cool, fun action, make it look possible. Again, we've gotten rid of the shaky cam and weird editing that was not a problem in the first two, but was kind of there and was definitely there throughout the movies in their era, to more cleaner, clearer shots, mainly filled with crazy CGI stuff, sure. But hey, if it's gonna look cool, who fucking cares? With this is again the fact that it doesn't go fully as much into its characters as it could, as it's definitely set up for future stuff, but in terms of taking it from a past era to a hopeful, better future era, this is a great movie that tried to do that kind of thing, even though it didn't lead to that, because we'll get to those movies later. In terms of making a movie that would hopefully transition you into that, absolutely super well-made movie, and I would give it absolutely a well done. I think this is a fantastic movie. This is a great showing of superhero cinema. This is fantastic. Maybe it could go into its characters more in terms of who they are, but it just has so much going for it in terms of how entertaining and how really well made it is that I can kind of push off the fact that it doesn't go as fully emotional as First Class may have been. I wouldn't say it's better than First Class, and I wouldn't even say that it's as good, but I would definitely say, damn, is it really close? And hey, maybe some people would disagree with that and say that this movie isn't as great, but you know what? I definitely would say that this is one of the best superhero movies, bar none. It is so fucking fun. And a great tribute to the franchise that's come before it, even if the franchise that came after it doesn't really follow what this movie set up. But we'll get to that. Because until then, I've been the Movie-a-thoner. I hope you like this review, and I hope you like Days of Future Past. If you did or didn't, then go ahead and leave that stuff in the comments. I'd love to talk about this, and maybe someone can change my mind on it not being as good as I'm saying about it. I'm fanboying the fuck out of it because I just love this movie so much. I was really waiting to watch this movie, and I hope other people really agree with me. If not, regardless, stay good, stay safe, and don't be an asshole.